How a Single Mom Threatened an Empire by Brenda Stedemeyer. Quote, plaintiffs have proven by a preponderance of the evidence that water fluoridation at the level of 0.7 milligrams per liter, the prescribed optimal level in the United States, presents an unreasonable risk of injury to health. End quote. Judge Edward M. Chen, September 24th, 2024. That sounds like it should have been the ending, doesn't it? The death knell of fluoridation? Apparently it isn't. Not yet, because the foot soldiers in the fluoridation army continue their assault on the people with gaslighting, name-calling, disinformation, and falsified data. But perhaps I should start at the beginning. The first stand. On April 8th, 2013, I stood trembling before the Green Bay Water Commission. It was the first time I had even attended a city or commission meeting. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have a polished speech. I didn't know anything about meeting procedure. I was just a single mom on food stamps, juggling waitressing shifts at Cafe Espresso. Since my water filters had expired and I couldn't afford new ones, I was hauling a 5-gallon glass jug of water up and down stairs to keep my kids safe from the poison my community added to my city water. Public speaking terrified me, but something bigger than fear drove me that day. Protecting my 2 sons was more important than my fear. I had just lost my friend Frankie. He had osteosarcoma, bone cancer. Hospitals, surgeries, chemo, radiation, pain, poison. During his final year, we had talked about fluoride. A Harvard study linked fluoridated water to osteosarcoma in boys during a critical age range. My son Hayden was in that window. I couldn't unsee the science, and I couldn't ignore my gut. So I did what scared me the most. I stood up and spoke. I asked the commission to stop adding hydrofluosilicic acid to city water. Hydrofluosilicic acid is a corrosive byproduct of the fertilizer industry. It's a slurry, a cocktail of hazardous waste containing lead, arsenic, aluminum, and radioactive materials, along with some fluoride ions. The EPA MCLG is 0 for lead and arsenic. Yet we are adding this junk to Green Bay and Madison's water. I thought the science would speak for itself. Fluoride wasn't FDA approved for ingestion, and water shouldn't be a delivery system for medication. Naively, I believed they'd listen. I believed that once people saw the science, they would see that fluoridating the public water supply was wrong. I thought it was a simple misunderstanding. Instead, I faced a wall of resistance. Judy Fredericks from the Brown County Health Department, Carrie Stemsky of the Oral Health Partnership, and Matt Crespin from Children's Health Alliance of Wisconsin. They wielded logos, titles, and polished talking points, claiming that fluoride was safe and essential, dismissing my concerns with lies about studies showing harm at 400 times our levels. Green Bay was fluoridated in the same range used in the Harvard bone cancer study. Crespin also downplayed dental fluorosis, calling it cosmetic and visible only to a dentist. But not only do many pay for cosmetic dentistry to repair stained and brittle fluorosed teeth, fluorosis was widespread enough that the recommended fluoride levels were lowered by 30% just 2 years later, from 1.0 to 0.7 milligrams per liter. Crespin, brandishing his association with hospitals, dental associations, and nonprofits, was either dangerously misinformed or deliberately misleading the public. He deftly used talking points, logical fallacies, emotional manipulation, and outright lies to protect the policy instead of the people. He was a member of the government-backed fluoride response team. I was just a mother who wanted to talk about science, my lived experience, and about carrying jugs of water. He had institutional backing. The commission sided with him. I was stunned. I realized I was a low-income mom going up against a team that included a woman with a designer handbag that cost more than my rent. I was drowned out by an empire committed to protecting a policy that worshipped a toxic chemical. Back in 2013, I never could have imagined that a dozen years later, I'd be the one telling this story. Standing on the shoulders of giants. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Sir Isaac Newton. I stood on the shoulders of those who came before me, who were ignored, defunded, censored, and discredited for daring to tell the truth about fluoride. They were silenced for being scientifically inconvenient. Their data was buried, credibility attacked, careers quietly dismantled, and voices muted. But their courage was the bedrock of my future. Fluoride wasn't just in the water. It was in the culture, in assumptions, in institutions, in policies that protect industry over people. I wasn't just up against misinformation. I was up against an empire. They didn't follow the science. They followed the script. I didn't just battle misinformation. I battled a well-oiled machine of tribalistic public health officials, grant-funded operatives, school nurses turned propagandists, and a dental industry more concerned with appearances than accountability. Many of the very dentists I was up against, who claimed to champion fluoride for the poor, would not even accept Wisconsin Badger Care patients, since Medicaid and Medicare reimbursements had been neglected for over 20 years. Their concern for poor families was a performance, not a practice. To truly protect children from harmful chemicals in municipal drinking water with life-altering effects, I had to speak out and speak with authority. That fall, I went back to school and studied environmental engineering, focusing on drinking water and wastewater. I learned more science. While I earned my degree, my life felt like a multi-ring circus. My boys, bills, books, and my brother Brent. Brent, my highly intelligent, kind, and fun-loving brother, ended his girlfriend's life just weeks after that 2013 meeting. She was the director of the battered women's shelter for Marinette County. At the time, Brent had been prescribed Adderall for his attention issues, and the two had been drinking. A dangerous combination never allowed mention in his case. Research shows that fluoride exposure increases attention deficits. If reducing fluoride exposure can help lower ADHD rates, then fewer people may need to depend on medication in the first place. Living through this nightmare, I often felt as if my soul had detached from my body, watching my family's pain from a distance I couldn't bridge. I needed more than a distraction. I needed a purpose. I needed to fight for something that could protect families like mine and friends like Frankie. The Tosca petition and round 2. The next time I brought the fluoride issue forward in Green Bay was in 2017. shortly after I joined a group that filed the 2016 petition under TSCA Section 21 with the EPA, an unprecedented move to demand accountability through federal environmental law. Many of the key players in Green Bay were the same as before, but a few names had entered the mix. The tension on the Green Bay City Council was more obvious this time around. The fluoride-related mudslingings between alderpersons in 2017 became so outrageous it was turned into parody videos on the now-defunct Green Bay Sausage YouTube channel. One unforgettable moment was Councilwoman Barbara Dorff yelling at Alderman Scannell and Zima, accusing them of embarrassing the council and warning them that their bad behavior was being recorded on video. Another member of the fluoride response team who stood out was Michael Schwartz, the new executive director of Oral Health Partnership. He was one of those pompous, nice guys with a smile types, known by many in the community who had polished talking points but no apparent interest in nuance. My heart sank when he gave his address at a public meeting. He lived in the giant house on the edge of the park, just a block away from the one-bedroom apartment I rented for myself and kids. He drove an electric car and kept a gas-guzzling muscle car in the garage. I was working, attending college full-time, and doing everything I could do to make ends meet. Michael was the type who stood in his front yard with a Roundup jug in hand, misting his lawn with the carcinogenic pesticide, while families and children cut through en route to the park. Michael Schwartz leaned hard on the CDC's dental myths and marketing materials. He presented I like my teeth talking points and the Wisconsin Dental Association's marketing one-liners as though they were peer-reviewed science. And sadly, many on city council fell for it. But the empire had to work for their wins, and I made sure of that. The Fluoride Rapid Response Team. I realized how threatening I'd become to the fluoride lobby when I walked into the Green Bay City Council meeting before the final vote and spotted Johnny Johnson, Delta Dental's favorite frequent flyer, in the front row. Johnny Johnson is the fluoride frontman who preaches the gospel of fluoride with the religious fervor of a snake-handling minister. In my opinion, Johnny serves the role as sock puppet in chief for other, more circumspect groups. If fluoride is on an agenda almost anywhere in the country or world, his small group, the American Fluoridation Society, dispatches him like a first responder. He flew all the way from Florida to discredit me. He told the council that I was spreading misinformation and that he would be the first to alert them if there were any red flags. He was already sitting on a mountain of red flags, but chose to bury them under rehearsed lines, fear-mongering, and industry spin. The Green Bay City Council voted to keep fluoride after Johnny Johnson and associates convinced them that my 2016 petition had no merit. Classic deflection, dismiss the messenger to protect the chemical. It turns out that the truth has more staying power than fluoride spin. The federal lawsuit. 2 months later, that petition became a civil lawsuit, and my sons and I became named plaintiffs. 2 months later, that petition became a civil lawsuit, and my sons and I became named plaintiffs in Food and Water Watch, Inc. et al. Versus Environmental Protection Agency et al. In the United States District Court, Northern District of California in San Francisco. We sued the EPA to force them to protect the public and susceptible subpopulations from the neurotoxic risks of fluoride by banning the addition of fluoridation chemicals to water. Pursuant to Section 21 of the Toxic Substances Control Act, 15 USC 2620, Obama appointed Judge Edward M. Chen was assigned our case. The American Fluoridation Society had another tactic up their sleeve. Knowing I wouldn't back down from fighting for safe water in Wisconsin, they held their annual retreat in Green Bay, where they cozied up to Nancy Quirk of the Green Bay Water Utility and Mayor Jim Schmidt. Their goal was clear: build relationships with local allies who could serve as foot soldiers, aka useful idiots, and keep the national players informed of events in my neighborhood. A new chapter. In 2018, I graduated with highest honors from Northeast Wisconsin Technical College in Green Bay. At the time, I had been simultaneously enrolled at the University of Wisconsin Green Bay, pursuing a degree in cellular molecular biology. But I made the decision to drop out and take a summer position as a wastewater operator assistant. That opportunity led me to Madison, where I accepted a full-time role as a wastewater operator at the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District later that fall. In 2019, I bought a small home in downtown Green Bay for $50,000. I called it my fuck you home, a symbol of independence and long-term security. With a mortgage, taxes, and insurance under $400 a month, it costs less than a storage unit in New York City. It was my backup plan, my screw the system sanctuary. Living without a car payment, with a mortgage that any minimum wage job could cover, and maintaining a cushion in my savings account is my version of success and security. Nothing is ever easy, and 2020 turned out to be a difficult year for me, like it was for most of us who don't belong to the laptop class. As a single mother working an essential on-site job, I had no option to work from home when the pandemic hit. In Madison, Wisconsin, the schools shut down and were converted into paid daycare programs. The cost was high, and my son Co struggled in that environment. He didn't get along with the sassy, sometimes aggressive kids who made it hard for him to focus or feel safe. To give him a better experience, I often made the 3-hour drive north to drop him off at my parents' farm outside Peshtigo. It was a good arrangement for Co and my parents, but the separation took a toll on my emotional health. Weekends became sacred, my only real time with my youngest son. The little house I had bought in Green Bay became our weekend hub, a place where we could reset and be together, even in the midst of the chaos. Our case was one of the first trials to be held over Zoom in 2020 because of the COVID lockdowns. In a courtroom where truth had to rise above industry spin, the world's leading environmental health scientists stepped forward. They weren't fringe figures. These were career-long public health experts, respected globally, with hundreds of peer-reviewed publications between them. Their testimony would reshape the fluoride debate forever and expose the serious neurodevelopmental risks of early life fluoride exposure. The landmark Tosca fluoride lawsuit launched into federal court with extraordinary momentum. For the first time in history, world-renowned experts in environmental health, including Dr. Howard Hugh, Dr. Bruce Lanphier, Dr. Philippe Grandjean, and Dr. Kathleen Thiessen, testified under oath that fluoride poses a significant neurodevelopmental risk, especially during pregnancy and infancy. Their testimonies were grounded in peer-reviewed science, including NIH and EPA-funded studies, and clearly demonstrated that fluoride exposure at levels found in drinking water is unsafe for the developing brain. We won that lawsuit in 2020 in theory, but because the DOJ, on behalf of EPA, begged the judge to delay his verdict until after the National Toxicology Program published its research on the effect of fluoride exposure on cognition and developmental neurotoxicity, we waited. There isn't enough space in this chapter for me to relate either the courtroom testimony or the behind-the-scenes duplicity of the fluoride empire who tried to derail our lawsuit and the NTP publication. Ultimately, we prevailed in 2024 with a second courtroom drama and an unequivocal verdict in our favor. And still, the evil empire of fluoridationists work to protect their false god. The international response. Between the first and second trials, I continued to engage with the appropriate Wisconsin authorities. In response to my contacts with the Green Bay City Council and Madison's Water Board, Johnny Johnson activated his international network of fluoride defenders from the UK, Australia, and Canada, pulling dental directors from across the country to swamp local proceedings with industry-aligned propaganda. One of the more absurd examples came from Dr. John N. Dane, dental director for the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services. In an ADA article, he bragged, quote, "I was alerted to this and that anti-fluoridationists were planning on stacking the speakers list. While I wasn't able to get on the speakers list, I could write a letter. I encouraged my staff to do the same, and we all wrote letters. So we sent 6, end quote. His letter appeared highly official, complete with the emblem of Missouri Governor Michael L. Parson and a header naming Randall W. Williams, MD, FACOG as director. In it, he falsely claimed, quote, "Even those groups that are against water fluoridation will admit that removing the fluoride will result in at least 1 additional filling per person per year." End quote. Really? According to him, if Green Bay stopped fluoridating, every single person would end up with 10 extra cavities after a decade? How could any rational person take this seriously? But the disinformation campaigns swamping our Wisconsin communities didn't stop there. At the July 13th, 2020 Protection and Policy Committee meeting, Florida resident Johnny Johnson again showed up over Zoom. I was one of the first to speak. My attorneys Michael Connett and Chris Nidell followed with details about our lawsuit. Johnny, as usual, waited until the very end, his go-to strategy to get the last word in. And when he did, he delivered a blatant lie, telling the council members that my fluoride lawsuit wasn't really about the fluoridation of drinking water, but about the Toxic Substances Act, as if the two were unrelated. I nearly choked. The lawsuit was specifically about the developmental neurotoxicity of fluoridation chemicals added to drinking water. Yet he twisted it again right in front of elected officials, and nobody challenged him. Democracy silenced. During the committee-level meetings in Green Bay, we were repeatedly told that the issue would move to the full council, where our voices really mattered. If someone didn't get their chance to speak, they would have their opportunity in front of the full council. On December 1st, 2020, the Green Bay City Council made an unprecedented and deeply undemocratic move. Councilmember Chris Weary motioned to open the floor for public comment, and Councilwoman Veronica Corpus-Dax seconded. Yet despite the motion and a meeting full of concerned citizens, Mayor Eric Genrich shut it down. The moment was captured in full on the city's official YouTube channel. Video proof of a democratic process deliberately derailed. Residents, some of whom had waited nearly an hour to speak on the fluoride issue, were denied their right to be heard. This was the first known instance in Green Bay's history where the public was completely silenced despite showing up and signaling their intent to participate. Mayor Genrich interrupted the process and overrode our efforts, blocking citizens like Elliot Christensen, Guy Zima, and David Bartakovsky from speaking. This brazen disregard for the public led Keith Decker, Lacey Keel, Benjamin Kademi, and me to file official ethics complaints against council members Barbara Dorff, Bill Galvin, Randy Scannell, Craig Stevens, Jesse Brunette, Lynn Gerlach, and Mayor Genrich. Their actions violated Section 4 of the City of Green Bay's Code of Conduct for Elected Officials, which explicitly requires members to encourage public participation, maintain fairness, and respect community voices. I also requested William Van Castle, legal counsel for the Green Bay Water Utility, excuse himself from evaluating this complaint for his conflict of interest and prior attempt to intimidate me. He had tried to pressure me into removing a legally protected video from my YouTube page in which a Green Bay Water Utility employee had confessed, quote, "I'm pretty health conscious. I don't use any fluoride in my toothpaste, any of that stuff. I know how bad it is for you. I don't drink our water," end quote. Our complaint was thrown out by city employees who were on the ethics committee. Tragically, Benjamin has since passed away by suicide. The Marquette Connection. Nancy Quirk's support for fluoridation was unwavering, driven not by science, but by family pride. Her nephews had attended Marquette University Dental School, and that was enough for her. Wisconsin DHS Dental Director Dunkel was closely tied to Marquette, too. He seemed to care more about protecting its reputation than protecting public health. Ironically, my own dentist, also a Marquette grad, chose not to use fluoride in their practice, having looked at the actual research and found it wanting. They were among the few with the humility to admit the science had shifted. Nancy Quirk, though, was well connected. She sat on the EPA Drinking Water Advisory Committee, had worked at Wisconsin's largest fluoridating utilities, and was an influential voice within the American Water Works Association. Her blind support delayed protective actions not only for Wisconsin, but across the nation. Worse, her name appeared as a member of the American Fluoridation Society, used on letters for many months, pressuring other communities to keep fluoridating their water. When I contacted Andrea Hay of the Green Bay Water Utility to confront this, she claimed, quote, "Nancy never granted permission nor willingness to serve on this group. She saw her name on it, cleared up the misunderstanding, and they deleted her from anything that had indicated she was," end quote. And that's the kind of operation we're up against. Deception by default, membership by assumption, and a campaign powered not by truth, but by repetition and intimidation. The road ahead. I impatiently await what the EPA will ultimately do with our historic 2024 verdict and what the Trump administration will bring. Karen Spencer and I wrote many letters to the CDC about their participation trophies, only to be told, in essence, go pound sand. But the tide is shifting. The CDC Oral Health Division, long the mouthpiece of outdated fluoridation policy, and the distributor of participation awards for dosing toxic industrial slurry into public drinking water, has now largely been dismantled. The days of promoting, endorsing, and rewarding this practice must come to an end. Science has evolved, and the public is watching. Yet the fight is far from over. Here in Wisconsin, decision makers fall prey to the bystander effect and normalcy bias. The Department of Health Services, filled with MDs, RNs, and PhDs like Jeffrey S. Lafferty, PhD, environmental epidemiologist, and Sarah Yang, PhD, manager of the Hazardous Assessment Section, has the expertise to sound the alarm about fluoride's risks to the fetus and bottle-fed infants. Instead, they defer to dental dogma. Responsibility is diffused. No one steps forward. Staff fear contradicting colleagues who built their careers defending fluoridation. To question policy risks reputations and job titles. At the same time, coworkers feel pressure to support one another and not step on toes, especially when careers have been tied to promoting fluoridation. No one wants to offend or undermine a colleague, so silence prevails, and the cycle continues, propping up an 80-year-old policy with nothing but cut and paste talking points. Wisconsin played a critical role in launching fluoridation, driven by overzealous dentists determined to fluoridate 50 communities by 1950. I discussed this history in my 2021 Clarion article, I Am Suing the US EPA Over Fluoride Added to Our Drinking Water. Today, DHS's Oral Health Division, run by a dentist who also serves as president of ASTDD, feeds Matt Jacobs' scripts to staff, encourages complaints on NIH-funded researchers and their institutions, and produces websites stripped of primary research and loaded with manufactured facts. The Department of Natural Resources, an agency that should remain neutral, downplays Judge Chen's ruling while amplifying trade groups defending fluoridation. Public Health Madison and Dane County parrot ADA talking points anytime HHS dares to highlight fluoride's harms. Agencies funded by taxpayers instead echo lobbyists. Even public broadcasting has been pulled into the spin cycle. Stations like WORT, wary of Trump's proposed federal cuts, hand platforms to fluoride defenders. Paula Tran, DHS staffer and senior health equity advisor at the UW Population Health Institute, went on air to promote the benefits of fluoridated drinking water after the NTP report release and our lawsuit win, citing outdated studies while dismissing the growing body of peer-reviewed evidence of harm. Promoters like Johnny Johnson are aired speaking recycled propaganda built on fallacies, while self-styled educated voices weaponize that misinformation to smear, bully, and silence locals like me. What should be public service broadcasting has instead become manufactured consent, propaganda over science, coercion over curiosity. But cracks are forming in the narrative. HHS has already signaled reform in its MAHA in Action press release. Removing fluoride from the water supplies was listed as a key public health priority, a stunning admission after decades of knee-jerk defense. At the EPA, Administrator Zeldin has declared fluoride will finally be regulated under the Safe Drinking Water Act. Yet, paradoxically, the Department of Justice has appealed Judge Chen's landmark ruling on behalf of the EPA, so we wait. Will justice for our children's brains prevail, or will politics stall the inevitable? What is clear is that the days of rubber stamping this failed policy are over. Those of us who have fought the empire of deceit for more than a decade, and those who have carried this torch for over a half a century, who have championed clean, safe water against all odds, are no longer asking politely. We are demanding accountability. We are demanding the truth, and we are demanding safe water for every community now and for generations to come.